Hi guys, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. So you'll no doubt be aware there is a new Blade Runner movie out, Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to Ridley Scott's 1982 classic, and it's been getting extraordinary reviews, and I'm really pleased to say that I think it is as extraordinary as what other critics and viewers have been saying. This it's not just a film. This is a movie that's an absolute pleasure to talk about. Yeah, it's also quite a bind to talk about as well because literally I can't describe any of the plot in this movie. Indeed, all of the critics that got to see it in advance, unfortunately I wasn't one of them, were quite explicitly told in the form of a piece of paper like don't reveal anything. They apparently the distributors and director Denis Villeneuve were very specific. Don't reveal anything. So I'm not going to reveal anything because the movie has just come out as of this past Thursday, and people should be able to enjoy the pleasure of going into the movie fresh, like I did. So, what's to say about Blade Runner 2049? Well, broadly speaking, let's broadly outline the plot. So, we pick up 30 years after the events of the original Blade Runner, which took place in Los Angeles 2019. At the end of that movie, this isn't I don't consider this a spoiler because let's face it, if you haven't seen the original Blade Runner by now, what have you been doing? At the end of that movie, at least at the end of what I'm going to be referring to, which is the final cut, which is the version that came out in 2007, uh, Harrison Ford's Deckard, who may or may not be a replicant, as in humanoid android, uh, runs off with replicant Rachel, played by Sean Young. And then, so now in Blade Runner 2049, we pick up with a new Blade Runner, Kay, who, in a very broad sense, is operating within a similarly gloomy sort of acid rain flecked landscape. Although it's not just acid rain this time, the climate has gone completely haywire in the years since the original Blade Runner. It's one of the many ways that Denis Villeneuve and the original writer Hampton Fancher have brilliantly brought modern day concerns into the Blade Runner sequel. So the climate's gone completely haywire. So it's not just raining, like everything's going on. There's a massive seawall around Los Angeles to keep the tides at bay. His superior is played by Robin Wright, who reinforces that society exists on a very fine line between human and replicant. He enjoys a relationship with holographic projection played by Ana de Armas, who in one of the film's finest performances, I have to say. But the broad storyline is that he uncovers a secret that basically threatens the entire social structure of this futuristic environment, and the storyline allows much greater scope than what you got in the original Blade Runner movie, and that's actually one of the things I think is really impressive about Blade Runner 2049 is it has a foot in the original world of Blade Runner in that it's a very oppressive, gloomy, cyberpunk landscape in which you have the divide between man and machine is very blurred. Yet also, one of the things that I was really impressed by is that it is actually demonstrably its own entity. There is always a problem with sequels that become far too inured to like past trends. You get sequels that are very often so preoccupied with what's gone on in the past that they cease to have any identity themselves. Well, Denis Villeneuve is not that sort of director. As anyone knows, he is a modern master. He made Arrival last year. He made Incendie, Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario. Really accomplished director, not only of atmosphere but also of character and of emotion as well. I mean, anyone who saw Arrival last year will still have it fresh in their minds about how powerful Amy Adams' role was in that, and about how it was anchored to her point of view. It was an alien invasion movie told from the ground up. Well, interestingly, in this, it's all grounded by the central presence of Ryan Gosling, who is he's a fabulous actor. what Ryan Gosling is able to do, he has quite an otherworldly, ethereal presence anyway. I mean, anyone who's seen him in the likes of Drive and Only God Forgives will be aware of that. Yet Ryan Gosling is able to do this sense of awakening, this sense of very subtle emotional awakening, which works brilliantly in this movie and actually gives this new Blade Runner movie a bit more emotional juice than the original Blade Runner had. I mean, the original Blade Runner is a classic, but it's emotionally very austere and very cold and very aloof. Is one of the reasons why Harrison Ford, who is back in 2049, found it so difficult to work on that movie because he couldn't really work out where he was meant to be coming from with the character, and then he had arguments with Ridley Scott about whether his character Deckard was a replicant or wasn't a replicant. Those arguments are still continuing into into the present day. So what I like about it is that it honours the tone and the atmosphere of the original movie, yet it moves the themes and the story into modern day concerns, and it also deepens their complexity as well. This is a movie that deepens our awareness of the mythology of the original movie. It doesn't just rehash it, because Denis Villeneuve, again, is not someone to do that. He is built on those foundations, and I think that's really, really impressive. Brilliant central performance from Ryan Gosling and the rest of the cast. It gives Harrison Ford something really, really interesting. I mean, as anyone who's seen the trailer knows, Deckard is in this movie. I won't give away the details of how and why he comes to be in the movie, but it allows Harrison Ford to really dig into this character who he's lived with since the original Blade Runner came out in 1982. And famously, it took Harrison Ford a very long time to come to terms with being in the original Blade Runner, and now clearly he has come to terms with it. And now he's able to reprise the role of this character and really dig into the darkness and the anguish of it, and that's really, really impressive. Again, earmarks Villeneuve as a director of actors, not just of mood. Talking of mood, wow, see this movie on the biggest screen you can. It's a lens by Roger Deakins, a cinematographer from my hometown, Torquay in England, funnily enough. Probably the best cinematographer in the business. I think he's been nominated for an Oscar like 12 times. He's never won. I mean, this is the guy who's shot Shawshank, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, The Assassination of Jesse James, Skyfall. If he doesn't get the Oscar for this, it will be insane. It'll have to be a very, very strong competitor to take the Oscar away from him here, because the way that perspective is blurred. The start of the movie, there is a shot of what looks like it's some sort of like grid-like geometric pattern, and then you realise that what you're looking at are buildings from up on top. So geometric patterns are also blurred and aligned. You have these bathed in these sort of like ochre and pink and blue shades. So it's an extraordinary visual film to look at, I'm going to say it now, it will get the Oscar for best cinematography next year. Dennis Gassner's production design is wonderful as well. It's all draped in this sort of pulsating Vangelis aping score by Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfish, which does pay due diligence to the original Vangelis score, as it should. Apparently that's one of the reasons why original composer Johan Johansson was taken off the project, allegedly because they weren't quite getting that Vangelis vibe. Whatever the circumstance behind that, Zimmer and Wallfish have nailed that really, really well. Yeah, and I think that, again, it's one of the great things about the movie is that although this is more plotted than the original Blade Runner, there is more of a through line in terms of the plot in this one. You can take away from it what you put into it. You can take away the storyline, or you can just take away from the fact that the atmosphere is the storyline. It is such an overwhelming, immersive, like sort of deep bath of a movie. When you watch it, you are in that landscape, and even if you're not strictly gripped by the storyline, which I was, but even if you're not, you can just be engulfed by this world and the visual styling of this world, the production design, the physical nature of it, the physical nature of the performances tells you so much, even if you aren't necessarily going to be gripped by the storyline itself. So see it, it's a big screen spectacle, and see it on the biggest screen possible. And how wonderful to have directors like Denis Villeneuve now. When people are saying nowadays they don't make them like they used to, just go and see Blade Runner, because it's basically a big budget art house movie, and it clearly represents a risk in the modern age when everything is like cut, 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 cut. Like, a real emphasis on sort of noisy, incoherent spectacle. Now, what this does is it slows everything down. The pace of the editing is wonderfully languorous, and you can actually drink in what's happening on the screen. There's so many details going on, and how wonderful to have a massive budget put in the service of a story in a movie like this. They do clearly still make them like they used to, because Blade Runner 2049 exists, and I'm absolutely delighted that it exists in this format. And Denis Villeneuve has famously said there is no director's cut. This is the cut that the director's cut is what you're seeing on the screen. This is the version I wanted to make, unlike the original Blade Runner, which took several iterations, including the infamous director's cut with the unicorn, before we finally got to the final cut in 2007. Denis Villeneuve's got it right the first time round, so that's another success. So there remains little more for me to say on this. Again, I'm not going to reveal anything about the plot. What I will say is go and watch Blade Runner 2049. It's a really extraordinary experience. I'm going to go and see it again. I feel I have to go and see it again. And ensure that you post some comments and some of your thoughts here on Kubrick Corner on YouTube, because I'd really love to read them. So peace out, guys.